There is Bisi Adjapon sitting right next to me. And there is Fiston Mwanza Mujila sitting next to her. And I want to welcome you to this panel titled Telling the Origin Stories, which carries the same title as the festival. And I'm very glad that so many of you have turned up here. I want to give you a short introduction to our guests in case you don't know them yet. Bisi Adjapon is a writer and an international affairs specialist who worked in several embassies, and she has taught and managed projects in Costa Rica, Mexico, South Africa, and in Ghana. She holds degrees in French and Spanish. She founded the Young Shakespeare Company in America and ran it for 4 years. And her writing has appeared in several journals and newspapers over the years. She has had her short story, Of Women and Frogs, nominated for the Kane Prize for African Writing. And the short story was turned into a novel and published under the same title in 2018 by Farafina Publishers in Nigeria. But it will be republished with a different title as The Teller of Secrets later this year by HarperCollins in the USA. And Bisi is joining us from Ghana. And we're very happy you made this trip.
Thank you very much. Hey, hello.
And her book is very popular, so the bookstand is already out of copies. But the American version is coming soon. You can pre-order it at your local favorite bookshops and have it as soon as it is published in November. My other guest is Fiston Mwanza Mujila, who is a poet and playwright, novelist, and short story writer from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. His novel, Tram 83, has been translated into a myriad of languages, uncountable almost, to German, English, Arabic, Italian, Dutch, Greek, Hebrew, Lithuanian, Slovenian, Swedish, and Spanish, among others. It was longlisted for the International Booker Prize in 2015, and it won the Etisalat Prize that same year, as well as the International Prize for Literature of the House of the Cultures of the World here in Berlin in 2016? 2017, okay. He studied literature and humanities in Lubumbashi and currently lives in Austria, where he teaches African literatures at the University of Graz. Last year, he published a new novel titled La Danse du Vilain, The Dance of the Villain would be in English. There is no translation yet, but it is coming to English as well as to German. We're excited for that as well. And Fiston, you're currently in the process of editing a poetry collection that is full of Afropean poets. Can you tell us a bit about that project?
Hello, Servas, hello. I'll try to speak English because I speak 6 languages, 3 African languages, French, German, and English, and my English is boring. Yeah, when I arrived in Europe for 10 years ago, something, for me it was clear that Europe is still something colonial things, because if you have black poet from France and you make your performance in France, and we don't have this possibility to be on the stage with poets from England or from Berlin or from Portugal, because poetry festival is very close, very, wie sagt man, sehr beschränkt. And for me, it was clear that it will be interesting to open the border, to make an anthology with poets from everywhere in Europe, from Sweden, from Denmark, from And I did this. The anthology will come next in 2 months by Wunderwald Verlag with 33 poets who live and born in Europe, and that's it, the story about this anthology.
Yeah, and it's titled Continental Drift, and is coming out this fall. The 2 novels that you both wrote, or that I want to be talking about, are very different books. So at first I was like, I have to talk about both of those in one panel. Difficult. But The Teller of Secrets is the story of a young girl coming of age, exploring her body and her sexuality in a very strict environment. And I really love the wide-eyed naivete with which she exposes all the hypocrisy around her. That was hilariously funny to me. And I loved also that it was so touching, her request for her estranged mother, and also her development, her striving for self-realization. It was really touching to me. Izzy starts out as the keeper of secrets in her family. Everybody burdens her with their secrets, but she decides to free herself from the expectations put on her and starts to become the teller of secrets. Hence, the new title also makes sense. Bisi, would you like to introduce us to the novel and maybe read a short passage?
Okay, well, you've done a very good job introducing the book. I don't think I need to talk anymore. But yeah, it's everything you said it is, but it is also an emotional coming of age as well as sexual, and even getting to know the society in which she lives. So the original title, if you should see it, is Of Women and Frogs, and now it's going to be The Teller of Secrets. And yeah, I would love to read a part of it for you, if I can find my glasses. What she told me was that she wanted me, what's your name again? Venice. I love her name, Venice. What she said initially was that she wanted me to read the very first sentence. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go on and read a passage that I hope you will enjoy. Okay. So at the beginning of the story, this girl is 7 years old, and I actually didn't like very much writing in the present tense because I didn't like reading novels in the present tense. However, for this, I found that it worked very well. So, yep.
I can hold your makeup.
Okay. Oh. I'm blind without my glasses. Okay, here we go. So here at the beginning of the story, oh, I can hold it. At the beginning of the story, she is 9 years old. My friend Elisha says I should watch out for frogs after it rains. She says, if a frog jumps on you, you'll turn into a man. I don't want to be a man and have hair growing around my mouth. That's the worst thing that can happen to a girl. So that's how it starts. And of course, now she's going to be exploring her sexuality and getting to know things. So the passage I want to read for you, it's actually from when she is a teenager in a boarding school and accidentally discovers masturbation. I say accidentally because nobody tells her anything, so she does whatever feels good. And the next thing she knows, something is happening to her, and she calls that quaking, an earthquake. So because it's a religious school, she feels very guilty because Bible verses are thrown at her all the time, and she joins a group of Christians called melody singers. And these people have the habit of praying, and they usually pray about sexual impurity. So when she discovers that she is impure, she's very worried about it. So I'm going to put the mic down for a minute and just grab the page. Here are some of her thoughts, because she's really worried about sinning. Why couldn't God make sense of the body hurt? No one needs to tell you to stay away from fire unless you accidentally fall into a coal pot. You know you will burn. But sinful quaking feels so heavenly, it blots out hell. I don't see how the other girls never do anything wrong, how people can get visions and know without a doubt someone is going to die for her sins. I don't know what to do. What is the use of having Jesus live in my heart if I can't be as white as the snow I've never seen anyway? To tell the truth, I don't know if I'll like such whiteness, even if I feel terrible after I've dirtied myself with my finger. The dirt is delicious. My misery hangs around for weeks, but the angel of death doesn't smite me. Now I'm wondering if it's possible for God to forgive me. I have to find someone older in Christ than me for help. There is a celestial melody singer whose face is smoother than a baby's. Surely she is sinless, and God will listen to her if she begs on my behalf. We sit in the sun on the footbridge that links Block M to Block L and lean side by side against the whitewashed wall. Even if my voice shakes, I have to tell the hard truth, not wrap the words in cotton wool. I'll use the word I found in the dictionary. Sister, I've been masturbating and I can't stop doing it. I pray, I really do, but I'm so sorry. I know I'm supposed to die for my sin, but do you think God can forgive me? She smiles sweetly and says, I was right to come to her. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us of all unrighteousness. I can't believe how easy it is, how lovingly she looks at me. We clasp our hands together in prayer. She lifts her sweet voice. Oh God, our Father, you say we have not because we ask not. So we come to you today to ask you to please forgive Frederica, oh Lord. Help her to resist the devil and the devil will flee from her. She comes against the stronghold of principalities and hosts. She invokes a hedge of protection around me, oh God. She prays long with passion, and I feel free from sin as an iron hedge of holiness clasps about me. I thank and I thank her. I'll never sin again. Yay! I spring up, turn to go, and then she stops me. Frederica, what is masturbation?
As I said, the book is hilariously funny. You'll laugh out loud a lot while reading it. And Tram 83, on the other hand, is quite different. It's a book like a jazz piece. It feels rhythmic, its plot is irregular, it's interrupted, it's ever-changing, and it's interspersed with recurring choruses, so it feels very musical. And it's centered in a nightclub, Tram 83, or a bar, if you will, in a fictional brawling mining town. And it's also centered on the myriad of different people that frequent that place. It's very lyrical, feels very musical, but it's also political and social commentary on humanity as a whole. And what both books have in common is that their beginnings are already very telling of what's to come in a way. So I would also like to hear the first or the beginning of Tram 83. Fiston, would you mind reading the beginning in French? I do have it right here.
Au commencement. Au commencement. Au commencement était la pierre. Et la pierre provoqua la possession. Et la possession. Et la possession. Et la possession l'a ruée. Et dans la ruée, et dans la ruée, et dans la ruée, et dans la ruée débarquèrent des hommes aux multiples visages qui construisirent dans le roc des chemins de fer, fabriquèrent une vie de vin de palme, inventèrent un système entre mines et entre mines et entre mines et marchandises.
I will not try to compete with that performance.
Neither will I.
But I would like to read the translation into German because I think the translators did a really good job doing that. But it will sound nothing like Fiston. I apologize in advance. Im Anfang war der Stein, und der Stein schuf den Besitz, und der Besitz den Rausch, und im Rausch kamen Menschen jedweder Gestalt, schlugen Bahntrassen in den Fels, fertigten ein Leben aus Palmwein und erdachten zwischen Markt und Minen ein System. So you can already tell it is very special in style, and Fiston's performance is unfortunately not written in the text, so you'll have to imagine that.
And read it in English too.
I could read it in English too for all those who don't understand French or German. We're in a multilingual panel here.
In the beginning.
In the beginning was the stone, and the stone, would you read it in English?
Yeah, except I will not try to do all that laughter. Oh my God, I think I would die if I try. In the beginning, ha ha ha, no. He understands his work. I have too much respect for him to try to duplicate his performance. In the beginning was the stone, and the stone prompted ownership, and ownership a rush, and the rush brought an influx of men of diverse appearance who built railroads through the rock, forged a life of palm wine, and devised a system, a mixture of mining and trading.
Thank you, Bisi.
I was respectfully read.
Since we're telling the origin stories, I was wondering, how did these books came into being? What was your inspiration? What was your work process like? Where do these stories come from?
It's actually funny because sometimes the accidents are the best. My book was written as an accident. I had been writing for maybe about 10 years, and I was getting rejected everywhere. And so for me, I met someone, a famous writer, who said, you know, he wanted to help me. I didn't even know who he was. And he tore up his email, gave it to me, and I threw it into the trash. And I was leaving New York, and then I went back and fished it out. And just to show him what I could write, I just sat down, I had a brainstorm, because I remembered that when I was a child, so I guess stories can come from our own lives sometimes, or other people's lives around us. But when I was a child, I was deathly afraid of frogs, because I had been told that if a frog jumped on you, you could turn into a man. And the most fearful thing I could think of was waking up with a penis or something swinging between my legs. That was terrifying. I would get up and one time, actually, I had a frog touch me, and I had nightmares, waking up every day in the morning to check between my legs to see if I was growing appendages, you know. So when I thought about that, I thought, oh, let me write a story about a girl who is afraid of frogs. And so I also did have a friend who was called Elisha when I was young. And I found her name hilarious because Elisha is actually a male prophet in the Bible. And I wondered why she was called Elisha, but be that as it may. I knocked out a short story, and I sent it to the gentleman. I just sent him 3 pages, and then he said he loved it. And so he said, bring the rest of the story. So I mailed the rest of it, and then he said he wanted to publish it. So then I thought, oh, who is this guy? And I went and Googled him, and it was Dave Eggers. So I said, oh, good. And so that's how it happened. And for me, I think not being conscious of what I was doing, not thinking, oh, I am going to write a story, but just having something I wanted to say helped, because when an agent read the short story and asked if I had more, I lied, actually. I said, oh, yes, I do. And then I sat home and I thought, okay, so this is what happened with the frog. Where do we go from here? And I just started typing and came up with 50 pages. And then she said, oh, great, keep going. And I thought, okay, I'll just keep going. And so that's how it happened. So I think stories for me happen organically, and they can just come to me like that. When I try too hard to work at it, it doesn't really work. So that's what works for me.
I was born in Lubumbashi. Lubumbashi is a mining city, and I'm self a mining boy because Lubumbashi was all like many mining city, like many African modern city was created because when the European came, Belgium, England, when they find mining somewhere, they say we can build here a city. And that was happened from Lubumbashi. The Belgian people, the Belgian mining company, they come in Lubumbashi, and they say, yeah, in the city we have many kupfa, many mining, we will buy a city here. And they needed many people for working in mining, and they're going everywhere in Rwanda, in Rhodesia, everywhere for circumscribed people for taking people for working in Lubumbashi. And my grandparents are from another part from Congo, and they're going also in this colonial period for working in mining city. And when I arrived in Europe, for me it was important to write about my origin, to write about this mining city, because, for example, in Lubumbashi, all things are connected with mining city. It's not possible to be writer in Lubumbashi because Arbeit ist verbunden mit mining, also Minenarbeiter. Also all Arbeit work is dependent on mining work. For example, if in my city, I say I'm a writer, the people laughing. They say you are too old to be a writer. You can be a writer till 20 years, but what is your job? I say, I'm poet. They say, no, it is not possible to be poet. You don't like money. I say, yeah, I'm poet. It's not possible because in Lubumbashi, the masculinity or the femininity are connected with work. If we don't have work, sometimes in Congo, when I'm in Congo, if someone asks me, what do you do? I say sometimes, you mean arbeitslos?
I'm jobless.
Yeah, I don't have job. Because I know if I say I don't have job, they keep me in road. They say, okay, it's okay. Because if I say I'm a writer, they begin to ask, what do you write? Do you know it is not interesting to be a writer in this country because we don't need writer. We don't need all countries broken. We need engineer, technical things, and so on. We don't need writer, and And for me, it was important to write about Lubumbashi. And I'm a poet, and when I began to write a poem about Lubumbashi, and for me it was clear that it was impossible for me for writing poem about this all reality for people who come from everywhere for working in mining for nothing. My grandparents, many people come, they don't get money, but they should work. And that is also a story of many mining towns like Johannesburg. The people come from everywhere for going to working in Johannesburg. And I began to write my poem, and it was clear that it was impossible to write on a poem because I'm writing some character came from from self, they come in the text, and I decide to write this book. And for me, it's not a novel, but it's a poem on mining city and something.
Yes, and it is very poetic. It really is a long-form poem. And how did you decide to stick to writing, or what is your origin story as a writer if there's so many obstacles working against you and people do not take your job as a writer seriously? What made you persist?
For me, sometimes when I'm on the festival like here, I don't feel me as writer because my grandparent was a seller. And I learned to have a bar. That's my curriculum vitae, because my grandparents, all on my family, many people who didn't want to work in mining, and they tried to be as handler. They work commerce and trade law and something and this kind of stuff. And many people from my family have a bar, local, and so on. And I was educated to work, to have my own business, my own job. My grandparents tell me a man must have a bar. If you have your bar, the people come buying, they will come and will drink beer, and you will got your money and you will got your freedom. And for me, it was, I began to write because at my place, at my parent, we have a small bibliothèque, and I read a lot of books and so on. And it was clear that I didn't want to be a writer, but ich habe diese Möglichkeit, viel zu write, also Texte zu writen. And
I had the possibility to write a lot of text.
Auf Deutsch kann ich auf Deutsch?
Ja.
Also, für mich war einfach wichtig, zu schreiben, weil Schreiben war für mich wie ein Pass, weil mit meinem Schreiben, wenn ich schreibe oder wenn ich Literatur lese, ich könnte überall reisen.
To me, it was important to write because writing is like a passport. If you write or read, it takes you places. It makes you travel.
Zum Beispiel, wenn du einen Schriftsteller aus Angola oder aus Frankreich, wenn du einen Schriftsteller aus Angola oder Frankreich liest, es war wie diese Möglichkeit, einfach meine Freiheit von dieser diese Minengeschichte, also einfach meine Freiheit zu haben.
When I read authors from France or from England, I felt like it took me out of this mining city, away from the mining industry.
Yeah, that is my story with writing.
Okay. Bisi, how did you become a writer?
I honestly don't know. I tell people this, and I know probably looking at me, you think I'm the biggest liar, but I was extremely shy as a child and as a teenager. I was so shy that if I came out of my house, and I remember actually doing this, I would stand on the balcony and spy, and if I saw one person on the street, I would not come out of my house. Writing was something I could do. I kept a diary. One of my favorite books was Anne Frank's diary, and I thought, oh, this is so good. I can write all my thoughts down, and nobody will really know what I was thinking, and I don't have to watch what I say. The other thing, too, was that as a child, I talked to myself a lot. I was shy of other people, but I talked. I talked so much, they called me the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation at home. But outside my house, I became very quiet. And then my father threw me into a boarding school. And in the boarding school, writing about my teachers, I was the class chronicler of jokes. Every teacher had a nickname. Every teacher had a poem dedicated to that teacher. And if I didn't like you, you got special pages. And so my diary would be circulated around the classroom. So I didn't have the kind of diary where I wrote secret thoughts. Well, for naughty things, I developed a code language that nobody else could read. But then they would pass my book around and people would make comments and all that. And so in all this time, I didn't really know that that was writing. I mean, writing just simply means writing. So all of you are probably writers. I mean, if you write down your thoughts or you have a secret social media account and you're doing things and you're writing. So one day, there was a play competition in my school. Every year, there was a play competition. And I decided to write the play for my school because I was only, 14 years old, and I didn't really know better. I thought I could write. So I wrote this play, and my teacher, bless her heart, said, excellent, let's do this play instead of another play by somebody, Ifeatu or something. So we performed my play, and my school won the competition. And then we went to the regionals, and we won, and then we went to the nationals, and we came into third place. So I actually started off as a playwright. But it's hard to just write plays because people don't want to just read plays. They want to see plays that people actually act. And so I just started, reading and writing. And I don't know, I wish sometimes I feel like a fraud when I get these questions, okay? Because I wish I could say I had this wonderful story, but it really wasn't that. I just scribbled things and eventually just fell into writing because it was something I loved to entertain people. And so I write about serious issues, but it's always with the idea of amusing people. The same way I used to clown for my class, my writing became a little bit of an extension of that. So I guess I write because I have something to say, and I actually thought I'd never get published. I wasn't worried about it. I just kept writing, and that's all. I write, therefore I'm a writer. You write? You're writers.
Bisi, is there something you are working on currently?
Actually, The Teller of Secrets is coming out, and HarperCollins bought the second book, which I already finished writing. Now, remember I said I had been writing something that had been rejected for many years? Well, the reason it was being rejected was because I was writing about immigration, and I kept getting this message from publishers, oh, nobody wants to write about immigration. And then this was way back in 2008, and then Chimamanda wrote Americana, and everybody went, yay! And I thought, I have that somewhere. So after Of Women and Frogs was published, I resurrected that, and with the same attitude of not trying to impress anybody, I decided to just write from my heart, and I came up with a book that the working title is Daughter in Exile, and so it's already finished, and HarperCollins bought that too, so it's coming out next year in North America, the UK, and Australia, just like The Teller of Secrets too. And we are also right now talking to German publishers, so hopefully it will be translated into German, and we'll see.
We're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Since you are both multilingual, you both speak several languages and probably read in several languages and maybe even think in several languages. To what extent do those languages influence your writing?
You want to go first? Yeah. Go ahead.
For me, it is because I live in Austria, in Graz, since more than 10 years. And when I began German to learn, my English was good, better, super. And then yet I forgot my English because I speak German. And I work in German, and I write in French, but I didn't practice French since 10 years. And I write in French, but I didn't practice French. And for me, French is now like a fictive language and a fictive Sprache because I work in this language, but I didn't speak in French. And sometimes I feel me as a musician because for a musician, if you are a musician, you make many repetitions. Du musst proben, sonst vergisst du, also, ja, musst du ich kann nicht.
It's like being a musician, you have to practice, otherwise you forget.
Yeah, and what I do for keeping, also for me, also, ja, also für mich schreiben ist wie einen Garten zu haben.
Writing is like having a garden, like tending to a garden for me.
Also Blumen brauchen Sonne, sie brauchen auch Wasser.
Flowers need water.
Ja, also wenn ich, also manchmal vergesse ich manche französische Wörter, also die Sprache, diese Musikalität, diese Spontanität in einer Sprache zu schreiben.
Sometimes I forget words in French, and in order to still have the spontaneity, the musicality of the language, you need to practice regularly.
Deswegen habe ich entschieden, jeden Tag eine Lyrik, eine Gedicht auf Französisch zu verfassen.
That's why I decided to write a poem in French every day.
Also wenn ich nicht inspiriert bin, ich nehme ein irgendwelches Buch oder ein Chorbuch und dann ich schreibe also irgendwo ich schreibe auf Französisch. Was ist wichtig manchmal, also ist wichtig einfach für mich, einfach jeden Tag, um nicht die Sprache zu vergessen.
Even if I don't feel inspired, I just write things down in French just to keep writing and keep practicing.
Und wenn ich meine Romane schreibe, ich verwende diese Lyrik, diese Gedichte auf Französisch. Ich nutze diese Gedichte für meinen Roman.
And when I work on my novels, I actually take all those poems and weave them into the novel.
Okay.
The multilingualism in your text is your writing in English informed by the other languages that you speak?
Oh yeah, it's particularly, sometimes, as I said, sometimes I feel like a fraud, and somebody will come to me and say, "Oh my God, that sentence that you used to express AC's thoughts was so creative." But really what I did was I thought in Twi, my native language, and translated literally that. And I thought, for instance, at some point she says, when we say somebody is ashamed, we say the person's eyes are dead. And she says that her father's eyes, she said, Papa's eyes are surely dead because they keep falling to his feet. So I carried that idea of your eyes being dead to her, thinking, oh, maybe that's why he can't raise his eyes, because his eyes are dead, So it does help me in English to communicate better, to form better pictures. At the same time, I have this habit of, because I lived in a French country for many years, sometimes if you wake me up, for instance, early in the morning, I insult you in French. I don't know why, but that comes more easily to me. And I find that, in expressing certain thoughts, certain languages, to me, express the ideas better. So I just take that language, whether it's French or Spanish, and then, or Twi, or for that matter, Wolof, and then I translate those languages into English in my head, literally, and then I come up with a beautiful sentence, and everybody thinks, oh, she did such a good job. And please keep saying I did such a good job. I really love hearing that.
Okay, so when we're done here, Bisi will be around for you to tell her what a great writer she is. Okay?
Also für mich wird auch was sagen, also wie Bisi bei mir ist es auch gleich, also manchmal als du
I heard my name.
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking German and mentioning my name. Are you trying to sell me or something? Tell the truth now.
No, he's not. I'll translate.
Good.
Also manchmal hast du keine Lust auf Deutsch oder Französisch zu reden, weil die Sprache ist auch verbunden mit Gefühl. Das manchmal, also wenn ich manchmal genervt, spreche ich manchmal auf Lingala oder Swahili oder manchmal auf Deutsch. Es hängt von auch manchmal einfach von Gefühl, aber wo du bist, ja, weil man kann nicht eine Sprache beherrschen. Manchmal ist es einfach spontan, du sprichst auf Deutsch oder auf Englisch oder auf Französisch.
Sometimes I don't feel like speaking English or French because language has a lot to do with feelings and emotions. And sometimes what was it, when you're angry? No.
Angry.
Yeah, when you're angry. When he's angry, he decides to, or he rather speaks in Lingala or in Swahili because it comes easier and it's connected so much to emotion that you choose to take the language that you feel in the moment, more or less.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you do things like that, it's spontaneous. But I imagine you probably have the same problem. Do you have children?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm living in America and we hardly speak any tree around me, but anytime somebody does something idiotic, I say, kwasia, and that means idiot or, it's dumb person or something. And so we go to an African setting, a Ghanaian party, and my son is playing, and my son suddenly turns to this big person and says, kwasia, and the person says, oh, don't say that, that's a bad word. And so, oh, it's not a bad word. My mother says that all the time. And just an anecdote, but I really get where you're coming from.
From now? Congo, I'm from Congo, Lubumbashi.
Oh, no, what I mean is I really understand what you're trying to say. Don't worry,
I
love that. Yesterday. I love it.
Also, er continue. Also, ich continue. Ich wollte nur sagen, also Leben in deutschsprachigen Raum beeinflusst meine Position als Writer und auch als Intellektuell.
Living in a German-speaking country has influenced my writing or my being as a writer.
Ja, ich glaube, jeder Schriftsteller, Schriftstellerin hat seine Genealogie. Das die Autoren oder Autorinnen, mit denen eine Verbindung hat.
I believe that every writer has a genealogy and comes from the writers that he's been influenced by.
Ja, und in meiner Genealogie gibt es französische Schriftsteller, afrikanische und französische Schriftsteller oder französischsprachige Schriftsteller. Und als ich nach Deutschland und dann später nach Österreich, war für mich wichtig, einfach eine neue Genealogie als Schriftsteller zu haben.
At first in my genealogy there was mostly Francophone writers, but also in African languages, in Lingala and in Swahili probably. Yeah. And when I moved to Germany and then to Austria, it was important for me to also include German-speaking writers in my genealogy.
Ja, deshalb sage ich immer, für mich als Schriftsteller, ich gehöre an der Gruppe 47, also nach dem Zweiten Weltkrieg. Es gab diese große Bewegung mit deutschsprachigen Schriftstellern, für denen wichtig war, die Gesellschaft einfach nachzudenken. Heutzutage, Kongo ist wie Österreich und Deutschland nach dem Krieg. Alles ist kaputt.
It was a bit long for me to translate, but after the Second World War in Germany, there was a literary movement that...
Group 47.
Gruppe 47. Group 47, sorry. Yeah. And we don't have that much more time, but I still wanted to translate part of it. And they felt like they were reconstructing...
I say I'm like this Austrian and German writer because the German language was used by Nazi people and so on. And now, after the Second World, the writer as Heinrich Böll, Günter Grass, Siegfried Land, tried to remove the language, to remove the imaginary, to remove the society. And I say for me, I'm in connection with this writer because Congo today is like Austrian and German not after the wars. All things is kaput. And as Congolese, when I write, it's important to me I ask me how my writing can be important because we live a country was don't exist. Congo is don't exist as country. If you see all things all things now in Congo, war and something, and as writer, I'm in connection with this writer, and I try to rethink my writing and my society as writer because
Okay, thank you for clarifying. It was just too much for me to remember to translate. I really want to thank you both for this conversation, but I would like to end this panel with a poem by Fiston, because you're such a performer as well. So I'd like us to end on that note.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gossiping a little bit, that's all. I was talking about somebody's hair.
Okay, so Fiston, would you like to read us a poem, perform a poem, because we're kind of running out of time?
And I'd like to read too.
Ich habe beschlossen, glücklich zu sein. J'ai décidé d'être heureux, de danser la rumba jusqu'à l'usure, de reprendre tous mes noms, bricoles d'antan, de demeurer l'enfant de la mine et du chemin de fer, la mémoire familiale épousant la locomotive, l'exil dans l'œuf, l'éternelle solitude. J'ai décidé, ich habe beschlossen, j'ai décidé d'être insolent et désagréable, de cracher dans la soupe de ceux qui arrachent les dents à la vie, de pisser sur leur prétendue bonne foi, de glouser en guise d'espérance et de me repentir par la suite auprès de l'esprit aîné. Combien de temps résisteront-ils? Déjà, ils ont fait de ce pays un mouroir. J'ai décidé de formuler de rêves aussi vastes, aussi colorés, aussi grandiloquents que l'espérance, de rêves somptueux, aussi baveux que la pluie tropicale, la seule éructant la malédiction, renversant tout sur son passage, et furieuse, et éternelle, et digne de déluge. Je crois qu'on ne fera plus entrer dans l'arche tous les animaux purs, le mâle et la femelle. J'ai décidé de demeurer l'enfant du Zaïre, de fabriquer de voitures à l'aide de bois de conserve ou de cerfs-volants à partir de sachets, d'y accrocher un long fil et de courir dans le soleil et de courir et de courir jusqu'à ce que l'engin gagne le ciel. Lorsque le fil de raffia s'est rompu, le cerf-volant zigzagant se perdait dans le firmament. Il ne nous restait qu'un sentiment de regret. J'ai décidé encore de rêver, non pas de marcher sur la lune ou d'inventer une énième arme chimique, mais d'ouvrir une espèce de bar merveilleux et d'y bazarder, non pas l'ivresse ou une quelconque beuverie, mais l'espérance. J'ai décidé d'être l'homme orchestre de mon destin. Moi-même à la batterie, Kenny Clark. Moi-même à la trompette, Masokola. Moi-même au piano, côte, moi-même à la contrebasse, Mingus, moi-même au saxophone, Sanders, voix de Makeba en sursis, de me trémousser de l'aube à l'aube et de fredonner pour ma mère, Mananga et les étoiles. L'indépendance, cha-cha, l'indépendance, cha-cha, indépendance, cha-cha, tozouiye. Oki poisa, cha-cha, tubakiju. O tableron, cha-cha, va gagner, oh. Oki poisa, cha-cha, tozouiye.